So today we thought we would end up talking a little bit about the receipts of magic, and specifically, we're going to be talking about a retroactive journal spell that we can do in about 12 minutes to kind of take a look at some of the receipts that we unknowingly carry with us in our lives, the stories that we hold on to that aren't often effective and helpful for us, and nonetheless we hold on to them. So, why don't we talk about that a little bit first?
Okay. So this topic came up in our community. We had a beautiful magical member go, I have a confession and I feel kind of bad about it that, I know I'm supposed to journal and record my results and I have such a hard time with it. And everybody in the room just like raised their hands like, yeah, me too. Um, and it just led to this really beautiful conversation around you know, why do we bother to record our results? And what is the difference between like journaling and um, keeping track of magical experiments and all of that? So um, we thought that that would be a really interesting thing to talk about today. Hello, Naktua. And if you have anything to contribute, as always, please do. It's so wonderful to get. Uh,
To get your insights and perspectives. We're kind of leaning our heads close because the visible area on mobile for the live will probably cut me off in part or Sheen off. That's fine. We were like, yeah, we have to do this together. We don't we don't often get to a chance to be together in person. So this is really important. We're working on that. So I think, here's the thing that I think about when I think about journaling. I journal almost every single day. And my journaling practice has gone through different iterations and changes over the years. One of the original magical experiments that I ran with journaling was around picking a theme for the month. And then I would end up writing and I would inevitably have experiences occur around that theme. In fact, I ended up writing one of the recent articles that I wrote was kind of about that initial experience. And then I got to, sometimes I would end up finding that I would be journaling about life events or things like that. And when I'd go back over some of those old journals, I'd realize that I was carrying stories from those times with me still. And I think that that's one of the things that about journaling is that on the one hand, journaling is a very powerful record and a way of kind of keeping track of what you've done and where you've been and the people you've encountered and things like that. And sometimes it can also end up being a kind of a record that can, in some ways, kind of keep you trapped or at least can highlight things that like old stories that you keep telling yourself that may or may not be serving you. And these become the receipts of our lives. I mean, when we look at our lives and we look at like magic, if we're looking at magic in terms of results and things like that, one of the things that I think is necessary to really look at is how the older results that we have and the experiences and the stories that we tell ourselves continue to play a role in our lives. And sometimes these are stories they don't even come from us. They're stories that come from our parents or teachers or other people in our lives who are well-meaning, but nonetheless have had well, maybe not always well-meaning, but who nonetheless have had an impact on our lives in ways that isn't always helpful.
yeah, and with journaling and magical results and doing magical experiments. We're kind of talking about similar but slightly different things. When we teach classes or we're doing magical experiments ourselves, we always try to have a workbook or prompts that are specific to the magical experiment so you can track your results. Results tracking is super important, but it's also in that process where, like, I think both of us have realized because we've shared our magical journals and things together, and looking back and reading them, it's like, oh, that came true, and that came true, and that came true. Um, we didn't mean to write them as hypersigils, but our unconscious release of magic is still a release. So one of the ways that we like to explain magic or spells at a very, very fundamental level is it is the raising, um, focusing, and releasing of energy. So when you're writing in a journal or you're writing your magical results and you're tracking your results, you're naturally doing this process and you might not even be aware of it. If you're writing about like a breakup or a very high impact, high emotional charged event, that's raising the energy. Um, Making the choice to put it down into paper, the words that you use, the spellings is the focusing, and the actual act of writing is release. So that's kind of what hypersigil journaling is. So you're creating these results, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally. Um, and it can, going back, looking at it from a retroactive perspective, can really release a lot of that energy, help you notice the patterns and release the energy within them so that you can reuse it. So that's what we're talking about today.
So one of the things that we're going to do is a retroactive journal spell that we're going to teach you that you can do in about 12 minutes. Didn't take too long. And it's something it's an opportunity to rewrite old stories by transforming them into something new. And so we call this the Palimpsest Gate. And if you don't know the word palimpsest, it's basically a page that's been written on, erased, and written on again. It contains the layers and ghost text with old ink still haunting the fibers. And that's kind of the point. An old journal entry isn't just a memory, it can be a spell that's still running in the background. It could be a belief, a vow, a trauma pattern, or survival strategy that your nervous system keeps pressing play on. And so, what we do with this practice is we interrupt it and rewrite the contract in order to harvest new power from that same ink.
And I love this because I write on a Remarkable, which is kind of a digital e-ink tablet. And yeah, the ghost of what I have previously written is always present. So it's like,
I like it because a lot of my journaling at this point is digital. I have old, journals from like the years where I've written articles sometimes, but also just journal entries about my life and things like that. And it's digital. And so I can kind of go in and change those or create collages or cut ups or things along those lines. So it's a transformation. So here's what you need. Um, you need your journal or just an entry, and it could be a digital entry. It could be a literal pen and paper.
all mine are.
Yeah. You could use a pen or you can use a keyboard or something else along those lines and a timer. And then one small object to act as a seal, like a coin or a ring or a stone or a key or anything with a little bit of weight and meaning to it. And what you're going to want to do is choose the charged page and then set a 1 minute timer. And what I want you to do is I want you to flip through and find an entry that still has some heat, still has some emotional gravity to it, some weight to it. It's something that has a charge. It's a desire or a fear or a breakup, a win, a collapse, a what is in my life moment. Whenever you find that, put that little seal object right on the page or next to your computer or wherever and say out loud, even if you feel a little silly, I enter this page with consent and sovereignty. Because what you're here to do is reclaim your authorship and free yourself of the inner censor that's been holding you back. Because even if this is a positive memory or a negative one or whatever, it can hold you back. It can be a story.
Sometimes it's just you're playing too small.
Yeah.
You got a result and it was amazing at the time, but then you kind of lock in at like, this is now my new baseline. And you might not even realize that that is something that's running in the background. I,
It's,
I would probably also recommend, even if you have a digital journal, to like print out the page for this. It has that little bit of extra physicality to it.
there is something really powerful about writing. With pen and paper or something along those lines. I still do a fair amount of writing on pen and paper and probably always will. So I get it. Um, so once you've picked that out, now you're going to set the timer for 2 minutes. So we went from 1 to 2 and read the entry over once slowly. And as you read, you're going to look for three phrases, at least three phrases that feel like spell, and maybe all of them feel like spells, but you want to pick out three. You'll know them because they sound absolute, and it's going to sound like your nervous system trying to keep you safe by making everything final. So it might be stuff. It might be stuff that begins with "I always," or "No one," or "I can't," "It never works," or "I have to." It could be any number of different things.
Shoulds.
Shoulds, yeah, you could be shooting on yourself in the journal entry.
Or giving other people power or, again, limiting yourself in some sort of way.
Yeah, and underline only three of those. All right, there may be more, but for the purposes of this exercise, we're gonna minimize it a little bit. Keep it keep it minimal but focused, and you can always expand on this afterwards. And so these are going to be hidden incantations that your body keeps repeating even when your mind swears that it's over.
So this is a really interesting one because so much of like personal journal writing or non-magical journal writing can be venting. Um, you and we're taught this process of, well, if you just get it out on paper, then it's a way of processing, and it is a very valuable way of processing in the moment. But it's also kind of going into your muscle memory. It's going while it's being expressed. When it's being held in journal pages, it can sometimes still be very sticky.
Yeah, it can be. It can be one of those things where it sticks to your sense of identity because your journal is very much a reflection of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a somatic truth check. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take a couple minutes and you're going to put your hand on your belly or some other part of your body where it feels like there's a charge there.
It might be your heart. It might be your little toe.
Could be any of those things. What you want to do is reread those three underlined phrases one at a time. And after each one, ask your body a very direct question. Is this true now? And the key is not to answer from your story. The key is to answer from sensation. You know, so putting your hand wherever it is that you're putting it, do you feel contracted? Do you get hot, nauseous, soften, feel relief, irritation, calm? Basically, this is a field diagnostic. Your body is giving a verdict before your mind builds the courtroom argument. So your body lean left, Noctua.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because we tend to think that, if we've written it down, if we've expressed our emotions, that they're processed. And at a conscious level, we can say, well, I've already processed that. I don't know how many times, just something will tweak or something unrelated will happen that will kind of just bring it back because while our conscious mind has said something is over and done with, our body doesn't always agree with that.
So now we're going to get to write the counterspell in the margins. And this is going to be like 4 minutes. And what you're going to do is next to each phrase, you're going to write a reply from future you.
And this is where the retroactive magic comes in.
This, let's be clear here. This isn't a motivational poster or a spiritual bypass. This is really about being real and sharp and clean with yourself. But it's also about making the choice to rewrite from a conscious perspective because you get the power to do that. So, first, write the old spell exactly as it is. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write a phrase, when I believe this, I pay with, and name the cost. It could be time, it could be self trust, intimacy, creativity, energy, sleep, money, whatever it is that it steals. Be any of those things. And then you're gonna write, now I choose, and make it present tense and make it yours. And so you're gonna choose, like, what is it that I want to embody? I'm going to choose self trust, or I'm going to choose intimacy or creativity or whatever it is. You're choosing that over what it was before. And then you're going to write down another statement one piece of evidence, and what you're going to write out is a micro proof, a single example that's already true, even if it's tiny. And this is where the rewriting of the story begins. This is where we're essentially going through a practice of taking the semantics and changing them, because your nervous system already believes evidence more than it believes affirmations. And so we need to give that evidence to your nervous system as part of the experience. So what you're doing here is you're creating new meaning while the old meaning is still active. And you're doing this as a way of reconsolidating your memory. And it works because what your brain does is it updates the file when you rewrite it while it's still open. So this is a really clever form of both retroactive magic and also the semantic sigil work that we're exploring lately.
Yes. And once you have done this process, you've also got a talisman. Um, you have the physical record of the spell in the margins, and you have your object that you can just keep as a physical anchoring object and a reminder of the new spell that you're weaving in your life.
Spell or smell. I,
Yeah.
no, I like that. I mean, let's have fun with it, right? Really, because part of this is also about creating new somatic experiences, and somatic experiences aren't just touch based.
That's true. I actually do a lot of spell work, and but now I can't even smelling. Um, smell is so intrinsically linked to our sense of memory. That's why they suggest that you use like rosemary essential oil when you're studying and things like that. It helps with memory recall. So you could absolutely be incorporating some scent magic into this process as well and create your own blend as you're kind of recreating or rewriting your memories and your um, journal entries.
So the micro part next to it is a single example that's already true, that basically says like, hey, here's the thing that I already know is true in my life. That's a rewrite of this past story.
Yeah. So say you were going through your journal and you're noticing a pattern of, oh, again, I'm venting about, um, I keep choosing the same type of partner. And, oh, and there's another version and there's another version. And, your piece of micro evidence might be that you broke that pattern or you were recalling one relationship that did not fit that pattern.
Yeah. I mean, it all boils down to finding something that tells you that something has changed. And remembering too that, I mean, we do get the process of iterative we do get the process of being able to change things iteratively. Like there may be something that we've done, but we've made even one slight change. That slight change is still an indication that we're doing something different. Now, one thing that I'll mention is that we are teaching a live class on March 15th called Semantic Sigil Alchemy, and we're going to be taking stuff like what we're sharing here and applying it even further in this exploration of word magic. Do you want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Um,
Well, yeah, it's going to be fun.
well, it kind of came out of the censorship article that I was writing and some of the explorations that we've been doing since then. It's our applied sigil alchemy process is all about starting with sigils and taking them through the alchemical process. So your calcination, your dissolution, all of the different steps so you can work with it um, somatically and in a very embodied way. And we're going to be doing that with our words. And it might be collective words that we want to alchemize or build new meaning around. It might be our personal stories and exercises like this. So we're kind of keeping it open and we're going to be sharing that whole process with you. And we do have a workbook with that. So you can be tracking your results and kind of doing that side of the magical practice. So,
Yep. So that's something to look forward to. But regardless of whether you attend that class or not, one thing I do want to share is that this practice that we shared here is just it's like a great example of something that you can do with your journals.
This one does not involve a bathtub.
No worries, Noctua. No bathtub needed. Um, but it's this is really a practice that, like what we shared here today, is like a really just a simple, effective way of rewriting your stories,
Mhm.
your journal. Going into your journal entries, and part of this actually came out of some work that both of us were doing. I know for myself, it was rewriting a couple of stories very recently around some past things, and realizing like in the process that like, oh, not only could I rewrite these stories, but that I could really see how I could build a deeper sense of self-trust with myself because I've seen how much I've grown and changed.
Mm.
That the person who wrote the original entries was definitely in a process of growth and doing the best that he could. And I gave him some forgiveness and compassion and empathy, but while also claiming, here's the ways that I've changed my life. Here's what I've done to as a result. So that was one of the reasons that we decided to come out to share this particular episode because it's such a powerful thing to realize like, hey, I have changed. There are things I've done differently. I am not the person that I was X number of years ago or what have you. And yes, it may be in some ways very obvious that we're not the people that we were, but sometimes it's really easy to default to that past version of ourselves.
Mhm. And the past version of ourselves has amazing information for us. There's a context of time and place. And sometimes when I'm working with my private clients and they come to me and be like, I'm stuck, I don't know why. And if one of the first things I ask is, do you have any journals? Do you have any past records? Because unconsciously, it will be there. And if you're looking at the past from the ability and the experience of the present, there can be a lot of gifts in there.
Mm. All right. Well, I think we've did pretty good here.
I think so. Although, as if Noctua mentions, if the idea of magic and baths and applied sigil alchemy does appeal to you, we do create an alchemy bath in our applied sigil alchemy class, and that is also the recording of that is available as well if you're interested.
Yeah. And we'll have all that information in the show links below, show notes below, show links. But yeah, anyway, we'll have all that below. And again, thank you, Noctua, for coming joining us
Thank you,
live.
David.
And thank you to anyone else who joins us after the fact.
Thank you.